Hello and welcome to this broadcast here from the studio at Frederiksberg, FellowMind. Today we will be focusing on Microsoft 365 Copilot and some of the insights from Novo Nordisk. So welcome to all of you here in the studio. Today we are three people. Myself, I'm Boris Nyland from FellowMind, Director of Modern Work here at FellowMind Denmark. And together with me I have Andreas. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Boris. My name is Andreas Ringsted. I'm the Chief Solutions Officer for Open Communication Group, and I've been working together with Novo Nordisk on their Microsoft Copilot adoption. Janus?
Yes, and I am, as written, Janus Andreas Børgesen. I am the Product Manager of what we call Digital Workplace in Novo Nordisk, and we are responsible for, amongst many tools, Microsoft 365 Copilot and all of the Microsoft suite. So, yes.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to.
Thank you.
And today we have for the agenda, if you can see the slides here, a short introduction to who we are, and then we will dive into the vision for Copilot at Novo Nordisk. We'll talk about the project approach and how to handle some of the security aspects of Copilot, and then there will be shared some insights about how to adopt the tool in an organization of that size. And also how to measure and to really follow up on the users on how to use Copilot. And then hopefully we'll also share some of the results so far. It's a journey that has just started, but it's exciting to see some of the results.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have anything about the playing field, Andreas.
Yes. First of all, I just want to say that we're extremely excited about presenting some of these findings and some of the learnings we've had so far. Copilot is fairly new still, so it's a journey, as you're saying. That's also why we're putting a little bit of a play to the whole thing. So we have a few things we would like you to do. First of all, ask questions in the Q&A. We will try and take them as we go along, or we have a little bit of time in the end to follow up on some of it.
So you can post questions in the questions tab, but also in the chat, and I will be following it to see if there's any questions we should address during the presentation, and I think there will be some time at the end also to take some of the questions.
Yes.
So that's how we handle it,
yeah.
I think.
And then just embrace your inner geek. This is a fairly new product, so there's going to be a lot of learnings. And if you have anything, post it in the chat. We want to start off with a little bit of a sort of a kickoff. The reason why Open and FellowMind is together in FellowMind's broadcast studio is that we have a partnership together. We've over the last year, we've seen more and more needs for digital proficiency, both on the technology side and on the organizational side. And that is why we've sort of partnered up and working very closely together. So just a few words on who Open is. We work with some of the largest European companies on digital transformation and internal communication. And FellowMind?
Yeah, and we do the same, but more from a technical angle to this. And also about the partnership, I think it's really valuable to us to have you as a partner here. I think we work well together, and we have a good fit of the capabilities from both organizations in this partnership. Is even endorsed by Microsoft, so it's really a good partnership we have here.
Yeah.
So enough of that. I think maybe one thing, FellowMind, we also Microsoft Jumpstart partner focusing on Copilot. So we will be talking about Novo Nordisk today, but we have also been working with a lot of other clients on Copilot. So. Yeah, over to you. And
thanks. So I'll actually give the word to you, Janus.
Yes.
With a start of a little bit on the vision, what led to this project?
Yes. Let me maybe also talk a little bit to the slide here to begin with. Maybe make your time count with Microsoft 365 Copilot. That is sort of our tagline about what is this product all about for Novo Nordisk. What is it we want to achieve by introducing Microsoft 365 Copilot. And of course, we have given it a lot of thought, and of course, we have heard what Microsoft wants to achieve with it, and what we in general want to achieve with AI, you can say tools, you can say across the globe and in companies in general. But for us, it's about this time concept, right? That time is really precious, so we try to take time at work and also sort of lift it up a little bit to look at your life in general, so it becomes a little bit big words, right? But it's really important, and we think time is really important. Time is important at work, off work, and we want to make the most of it. So we thought that that was a really good concept around Microsoft 365 Copilot. Not only because, of course, we hope to increase productivity and hope that the employees will gain some time out of using the product to use for something which is more valuable to them and to Novo Nordisk as in general. Also, this about making your time count links quite well into Novo Nordisk, where we have a leadership concept around time is the ultimate currency, right? And it links really well with that. So this is what we want to do, right? We want to make our time count. We want to utilize these tools to make something valuable out of it for each and every employee. It's not only about productivity for Novo Nordisk and hoping for that, it's also for the individual employee, and we'll get a little bit back to that when we also talk measurements, etc. So our vision is that, we want to take this product and give it to as many people as possible, so they can actually get benefit from it in their daily work.
Great. And any sort of thoughts on, we said embrace the inner geek, but actually what we've been discussing as well, Janus, is also about this giving it to everyone, sort of democratizing the idea of AI.
Yes. Yes, and that's, you can say that's part of it as well. And so in the beginning, of course, the geeks will start using the product, right? And as we began our journey, like the rest of the companies, we got a very few seats, of course, from Microsoft in the early access program. So we gave that to the most interested people, and that often will become sort of the geeks or the first movers. But our aim with this product is actually to make AI something for everyone. So that's really the big difference here, is that we don't focus on specific people getting optimal value out of this product. We focus on distributing the value across as many people as possible. And that's what we mean by democratizing AI, making it relevant and interesting for all types of employees, not only the IT people or the most geeky ones that really are into these tools. And that's a really important concept for us, because it's a start of a journey as well, right? It's the start where people get to know what AI is, how you work with it, how you make prompting to an AI tool, which most people today, of course, do not have any experience with. So we want to make that an experience for everyone. And there, Microsoft 365 Copilot is a really good tool to start understanding what AI can do.
Yeah. Safe tool to start with. When working with it, I think it's a strong vision and really, a promising way of rolling it out. I think this democratizing AI is an important aspect.
Yes.
So it's not for the few,
no,
for the lucky ones or whatever it is.
Not only.
As we have on screen, there's already a few product learnings. As we mentioned in the start, Copilot is on a journey.
Yeah.
A few words on what we've seen so far?
Yes. First of all, of course, the first bullet talks to it here, and I guess most of you following online as well know this. It's a product in development, right? Microsoft launched the product, you could say, without really having a final product, of course. So there's a lot of learnings from the beginning. Not everything worked as it should. They were still developing some of the tools for some of the Office applications. So definitely a product in development is not going to give you either the value on day one, right? It will give the value down the road, and that also talks a little bit into the democratizing AI, that we have to wait for some of the value. Maybe we have to take it as a learning, starting to use the product, starting to figure out what it can do and cannot do, and where the value actually lies, right? So it's not given. Of course, Microsoft has some intentions behind the product, which they, of course, present to us in a nice marketing kind of way, but you really have to try it out yourself to figure out where does the value lie for me.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. The other one is, of course, balancing, again, expectation that lies a little bit with the product and development, right? That it's not a magic wand. I often say that, right? It's you cannot believe that it will just do the work for you, right? It is a Copilot. It is something that can help you do some tasks, but definitely not all of it yet, right? And people can also, you can say, get a little bit disappointed, actually, and some actually got kind of disappointed. Is that it, right?
Yeah.
Why it cannot do this for me? Why it cannot do this for me, right? So, yeah, it is not the magic wand. It is something that can do some things and hopefully will develop down the road to do more things for you.
And the expectations is also something we've been having to deal with in adoption, because people have some people had sky high expectations on it.
Yeah.
New
And
way
maybe
of
just
working?
new way of working. Of course, it's a habit change, right? And working with a new tool that you have not been used to using before, starting to prompt something like you have to do with AI tools like this, it's not something people have experience with. So it will take time to change the habits, and we have seen that also now. It does take a lot of time and a lot of effort for people to start working in another way, and also to figuring out where does the value lie. I was thinking this morning, and I don't know if it's a good example or not, but you tell me, but when we started also, having to Google on the internet, right? First time we had to do that, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to write, how to write it to actually get the results that we were expecting. And I was thinking maybe it's a little bit the same here. I know that's more than 20 years ago probably, so not all knows this, but I do. And also introducing the iPhone, it's already also a very used example, right? But think about it, that in the beginning with the iPhone, we also used it for calling and texting, because that was what we knew how to do with a phone. But all the applications, all getting the productivity value out of the iPhone, it took years as well, right? And I think we have to expect it, that it will go faster with AI, but there is some learning curve to work with, right?
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into a little bit of the details on the project. There was an EAP, as you mentioned, and then quite fast a rollout.
Yes, you can say that surprised us, right? It even surprised, I think, Microsoft, at least some within Microsoft themselves, how fast they were actually releasing this product to the whole world, right? So, of course, we were very interested in becoming part of the EAP in the beginning. That started before the summer vacation last year. And we felt lucky that we got to pay for these licenses for Microsoft and be part of it in the beginning. And then, of course, we started testing it out. We found good test users, trying to find someone across the company, of course, mainly a lot from IT, but also from the business at that point in time. And then we started all of that up after the summer vacation, and already very early, right, Microsoft announced that from 1st of November, there would be licenses for all. And of course, we were not at such ready at all to say, okay, we just apply a lot of licenses, because we are still getting learnings from the initial users, which were the 300 that most other people had, right? But Novo Nordisk has the intention to be front runners, right, and to be part of trying to use some of these new digital solutions. So that meant that we actually invested in quite a number of licenses already early on, which we are then releasing as we speak. And of course, we'll get a little bit back to that. But that was sort of the journey that we bought it, but we were basically not ready to release it to the organization, because we also wanted not just to hand it out to just specific people, right? We wanted to figure out who are the right people to get it, how is a good approach to actually get this out into the organization. So we could not just open up for it for several reasons, actually.
Maybe just pausing at after the EAP, any sort of learnings or considerations that we had during the EAP that we took to the rest of the rollout?
Yeah, a lot of it was also related to, which you can say, what I said before about product being in development, right? So, of course, we released all of the functionalities in the EAP and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. How does it work in Teams? How does the chat work? How does it work in PowerPoint, in Excel, etc.? And, of course, there were some of these product Excel stuff was not even there at the point it came. PowerPoint was not working. And it's basically still not working to the expectations that we have, right? We are in Novo Nordisk. We have sort of a branded templates and such stuff like that, and it doesn't work with the branded templates yet. So we are in
question around this at the moment. So did Copilot meet your expectations in terms of brand compliance of generated PowerPoint, Word, etc. documents?
Yeah, and of course that question is leading to a no, right? Of course, it did not at all, and it still doesn't, right? You had to do different kinds of special things to actually get it to comply with your branding and stuff like that. So we have a brand tool called Templify that we use, and it doesn't integrate with that, where we have a lot of our templates, a lot of our picture galleries, etc., together with that. And basically, Copilot did not take from that gallery, right, or from that template storage, and it just took random things, right? Yeah. And therefore, it does not give good results. And that was a big disappointment for users, right? And also, you can say for us, because of course, knowing that we have all of this and working together with Copilot, there would be a lot of value in it. Yeah. But unfortunately, we're not there yet. We are working on it, and we actually have expectations that there will be some improvements to that for now. But that was one of the learnings from the early access program, that's
also one of our learnings, and there are some tweaks you can do to
exactly.
make it better. But
still, it's difficult for users to understand exactly how to do that, etc. Yeah. And then from the other learnings from the EAP, you can say there was something about also what it takes to get to know the tool, right? Yeah. We know we had to invest probably a lot of both money and time into getting people to understand how to use this product. So we could see that we had a lot of, you can say, unused licenses, or basically people who not inactive users, right? And we knew that it actually took a lot of effort to get them to see the tool, how it worked, etc. There was also things around the technical barriers. I don't know, maybe we get a little bit back to that. That made it more difficult in the EAP process, or in the early access process, to actually use the tool in Novo Nordisk.
Yeah. Anything, we have a little bit of leading in the security learnings, but I know also it's very important for Novo Nordisk that you have a lot of compliancy that you need to adhere to. Yeah. A couple of words on that?
Yes. You can say that was, let's just take some of the barriers and then take the security part as part of that. So one of the reasons for not releasing early on, also in November, when we actually bought some of the licenses, what we had to look at the security parameters. What do we do? What's the risk if we release this product to a lot of users? So we wanted, and we agreed with security, that we wanted some kind of training or learning for the users who use Copilot. And we integrated that as part of the adoption journey together with you on how do you educate users to use this product in a secure manner from a data perspective, right? And we also know, and I think most companies know, that when you store data within Microsoft applications, we have different levels of security, like confidential, strictly confidential, etc. And you're only allowed to store some things within our Microsoft suite, and some things you cannot store within that. So also learning people that, and ensuring that they are not oversharing things, right? And using data together with Copilot that they're not supposed to. So all those things we had to figure out also together with security before we felt ready to release the product, right?
And the whole communication around what you can and cannot share is really an ongoing journey with the users. I think yesterday we had a little bit of a brainstorm where we said repetition is king, because we need to repeat that message towards the users to make sure that they are aware of how to
and it's actually not unique to Copilot, right? It's just Copilot makes you take that discussion once again in the company. How do you store your data? How do you share your data with whom and what, right? So it fits into an overall discussion, but of course, because you have AI, you sort of get that data discussion going again.
Yeah. Did you have to do some cleaning of your data in your Microsoft tenant before releasing it?
No, we did not. No. I mean, that's a huge exercise. We do clean on a yearly basis or we ask people to clean up, right? And we also have some retention policies, etc. So there are some things kicking in, but we are also working on other fronts, sort of with labeling of all our documents, etc., that we will start on now as well, which will help us also go into a better place.
Yeah. Thanks for all the questions out there. I can see there's the chat is
a lot.
Maybe one technical barrier also just be to talk about the barriers of not releasing early on was this about, the Office comes in different versions, right? And we were running on a version where we only updated Office every 2 times a year. And actually Copilot or Microsoft 365 Copilot was not part of that. So basically all our users could not use it with the current Office version. So they could either use it in the web applications, or we offered for the early access users the current channels where you get sort of the updates on a continuous basis. That also meant that people in the beginning did not have it in their desktop applications, right? And that made it also more difficult for them actually to start using the product. So one of the things we had to do was also to move to what is called now the monthly channel, right? Where you get monthly updates, where Copilot is then a part of it. And that took also a little bit of time, of course, to release this product to all of Novo Nordisk, which is like 80,000 users, right?
Yeah. Thanks, So linking to the next slide, but just before that, let's jump to the other side of the EAP. Now we've done some prep, and now we're rolling it out, and we've had quite a few discussions on how to roll it out. So maybe a few words on, how did you roll it out? We didn't do a big bang. We sort of we continuously released it and refined and so on. So maybe a few words on that before showing the adoption approach.
Yeah, you can say the idea around it was, of course, that we can be honest and say we wanted to partner up with someone as well. That's why we also partnered with you to get a little bit of insights in how could we do this in a nice way, and also we knew we needed a little bit more arms and legs to support that, because there is sort of both a hypercare period but also a preparation period which was bigger than what we had capacity for ourselves in Novo Nordisk, right? So what we wanted to do was we wanted to go, you can say, a little bit like a viral campaign, right? We wanted to not just, ask everyone in Novo Nordisk, do you want this product or not? We wanted sort of to try and target the most interested users. So I think one of the cool things we did was we made very simple an interest form that we sent out and said, hey, if you're interested in getting Microsoft 365 Copilot, put your name into this form, right? And give a little data about yourself and why you are interested in it. And that actually gave us, I think, 5,000 people who are interested in getting it, and a very good starting point for actually talking to the ones who probably knew or had an interest in the product to begin with. So that was one of the approaches we had, and which we really utilized in shaping, you can say, the adoption, etc. And of course, from the EAP program as well, we had a lot of people who had used the product quite extensively, right? So also the opportunity of adding ambassadors or champions or whatever you call it was also quite evident that would be a good idea.
Yeah. That's a great stepping stone to the next slide. A little bit on the adoption, because as you mentioned, we had quite a few learnings from the EAP, and we also had some users from the EAP we could sort of use for a continuous journey. So maybe a little bit on what were our considerations, how do we approach it, because we also had a little bit of a sprint before launch on creating the actual launch package.
Yes, we did. And we launched around week 9, which was like just after week 8, 9 in end of February, right? End of February, and we had only probably January and February to really, prepare everything. We knew we wanted something that looked both a little bit nice, professional, etc. Right? We wanted to create the right feeling of people when they used Microsoft 365 Copilot. So parts of it was creating this make your time count thing. Parts of it was, of course, also preparing all the materials and the flow of getting people to feel welcomed and invited into using an AI tool for the first time, more or less, right? So we spent all that time building that, of course, together with you and figuring out how would that flow look like, right? We looked at user flow, so the user, gets the interest. How do they go from being interested into getting the license, into getting started, and outlining all of that flow, and then building what was needed to support that flow, right? And after people got onboarded with the license, what would they then do, right? And they would go here, and then they would start with these kind of things, and then they would go to this, etc., right? We also knew we had to start with a few small examples, right, where we thought that there was immediate value of getting the product. So we would avoid this disappointment that there would be, for example, by using PowerPoint or something else, right? So we started with saying, okay, these are the 2-3 things where you can get immediate value no matter which profile you are at work, right? We also moved away from profiles. We didn't want to say, okay, if you're a leader, you use this. If you're a salesperson, you use this. We said more of a general, if you have these kind of tasks and use, Office applications in your daily work, here are some options where you can get immediate value.
Yeah. One of the questions related to adoption is how do you handle the Danish language? Everything is in English,
yes,
even though you're a Danish company?
Yeah, we are a Danish company, but you can say much of our communication will exist in English and will be done in English for a large part of the both the meetings. Some meetings are of course in Danish if there are only Danish people, but a lot is international environment. So I don't think it has been a big problem for now, for the rollout, that Danish has not been a supported language. And Danish has actually been, working to some extent, right, even though it's not supported. So it has not been a problem that it was Danish or English only to begin with, right? It was actually a benefit that some of the other languages that we have in the global company was there, like Spanish or Portuguese or some of the others. So that was a benefit for many people who are maybe not that good in English to be able to translate, etc.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So in the adoption approach, some of the challenges we heard in the EAP was, if I don't get started fast, I feel like a failure. I don't really know how to work with this. And we took that into the larger rollout, and you mentioned the what we call the killer cases here, to make sure that everybody was on board as fast as possible. Can you mention some of the actual cases that we worked with? Some of the things that we basically sent out. We had this getting started page where everybody was invited into.
Yeah, so I mean, as well as me, of course, some of the details here, Andreas. But yes, we built an onboarding. You can say we built 2 sites, right? We built a getting started site where you applied for the license, and in this application, you were also taken through a quiz. So you got to know a little bit about Copilot, and then you applied for the license. You got the license, and after the license, you basically got an email, right? It triggered an email to say, "Hey, welcome! Now you've gotten a license. You should go to this site and get onboarded," right? And then we have built an onboarding universe where you go in and have a chance to sign up for live sessions, for demo sessions, where you actually meet people who have used Copilot before or who know something about it. And of course, there's also a lot of learning materials and guides, etc., for different use cases, etc., right? So it's really taking you through, where do I start? Even if I'm a rookie or if I'm a little bit more intermediate or advanced, there are different cases as well that you can use, right? So we hand carry a little bit people online, I would say, but still hand carry them a little bit into getting started, right? Yeah. But even though we have that, it's still you can say a challenge, right? And maybe we can get a little bit to that.
And I think just to add to that is that in the whole spirit of democratizing AI, we're also pushing a lot through community. So we're really inviting people into Viva Engage as our primary community for all users, to make sure that they share and ask questions in that community, sort of that is the whole tone of voice around this rollout.
Right.
People can read the learnings themselves, but maybe highlighting one thing, this different users, different learning curves. I think that was quite apparent when we started sort of diving into the first surveys.
Yes.
Can you put a few words on that specifically?
Yes, I can. So of course we have some users, and also when you take average numbers, they can look good, but some users are really driving the curve up, you can say, right? There are some users who are really engaged and who are really using it a lot. And then you also have a portion of people who is almost not using it at all, right? Or not using it at all, even though they have the license. So depending on the user, your interest, of course, your daily work, etc., there's a big difference between how much you use it, between the users, right? So And of course that creates it becomes difficult. You can say it helps us that the users who really use it a lot, they become great champions, they become great ambassadors for the product, which is going to help us on a little bit on the longer term, I assume, right? But it also means that what do we do with all those users who have really trouble getting started and getting the value out of the product to begin with, right? I think it's pretty normal, so I don't think it's something necessarily to worry about, because it takes time, again, as to get to use this product in the right way and to get value out of it. And we don't have that much time either, right, in our daily work, just to sit down and learn a new tool to get to know it. So it has to be as intuitive as possible to get the value.
I think one of the learnings I have is that it takes time to learn it, and that's the biggest hurdle, finding that time in your day-to-day life.
Yeah. And you are not forced to use it either, right? No. So it also becomes more difficult, of course, to adopt the tool when you're not forced to it, right? So
an optional new way of working.
It is for now, right? But I think one of the important thing is, of course, that this will be integrated part of the way we work, no matter if we want it or not, right? It's almost like with Teams and Corona, this is going to be an integrated way, right? So that will, that will be something interesting for everyone at some point. And of course, there are some who are faster than others to get into this game, but everyone will probably eventually get there.
Yeah. That's the same with all technology, I think.
Yeah. All right. So as people probably can hear, is that we are doing a lot of measurement. We're focusing a lot on experience of getting that data, both qualitative and quantitative data, out of the users, so we make sure that we understand how they behave and what their needs are, basically, in this adoption journey. Yeah. How do we measure? There's a few parameters here we can highlight.
Yeah, and I think I also want to mention, of course, that not only how, but also why do we measure, right? Because we, of course, measure. As Novo Nordisk, we're also a company that needs to have some return on investment in general. So when we buy a number of licenses, of course, there's a lot of interest into, is this tool actually giving us what you could say Microsoft promised with their marketing, but also is giving us what we expect as a company, right? And that's why we, of course, measure. But we don't do it only in a very simple way, like only focusing on productivity. As you can see here on the slide, we focus on a different range of elements, and there's a reason for that, right? It's not only about productivity, it's not only about can we do more with the time we have. It's also about, as it states here, quality, right? Can this actually increase quality of the work for some of our people, right? Do I actually write better text? Do I get more quality output by being able to, get an overview of my data in a more easy way than I could before?
And we do actually see that when we measure people, is that they do have a perception that they become better at using the M365 tools when they use Copilot.
Yeah. So that, and of course satisfaction in general, it's also about engagement, right? Is this a tool where people say, hey, if I get Microsoft 365 Copilot, I get more engaged at work? Sort of a simple measure, right? But having these tools available is maybe also, you can say, a people branding thing, actually, right? Then there's the important thing, I think, right now where we are is the AI proficiency, right? And we talked a little bit about it, but I think that's probably what we should not forget that now, right? Because we will not get the productivity, the quality, and necessarily the satisfaction right here and now to the extent that will maybe be worth the investment, right? But we do get AI proficiency, right? We do get that people start to know what these tools are, and they start to understand how they work.
Yeah.
So they will gain value over time. And I think that's why I think AI proficiency is a really important measurement right now for us. And then, of course, adoption says that we need people to use the product in order to find out also what works and what doesn't work, right? So,
yeah. And I think the whole idea of democratizing AI and helping your employees or your colleagues to become better at AI in general, so when it becomes that real game changer, then they're already a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
All right. So we've been talking about the whole project, both in the challenges and the adoption and the rollout and everything. So I think as we started to mention, or as we started saying when we began, is that this is a journey. We're not finished yet, but we do have some first measurements, and I want to turn our attention to the next slide. There's some initial employee reactions to the rollout of Copilot.
Yeah.
Do you want to put some words on what we have here so far?
Yes, I mean we can see, of course, that we have a number of active users who actually use the tool. We'll also there's a slide more on that, but that's what you see here on the left side of the slide. So how frequently do you use it? There's a big percentage who use it several times a day. There's a big percentage who use it a few times per week. So in total, you can say, yeah, people they use it. They use it on some frequency. Which is of course good, and which is of course our aim, that they use it within some frequency. What do they use? They use these functionalities most, which is summarizing meetings in Teams, summarizing email threads, actually a little bit surprising to me, and then drafting documents, right, in Word. And I think the first and the third is not so surprising, because that's some of the functions that actually works quite well. I think summarizing email threads also works well. It's just not something I use personally so much. The chat function is not here, but I would actually think that's growing in use, right?
I think that's number 4.
That's probably number 4 or 5, right? Yeah. But so it's not super surprising, because these are some of the functionalities that we have promoted. Also in our adoption, because that's some of the things where we think we get immediate value out of using it for all users across Novo Nordisk who has the license.
What's your most used functionality?
Mine is the chat, I think, right? Asking the chat different things, finding files, searching information for me. That's what I use it most for, actually. So,
boys?
I think the same. It's a Google-like thing internally to find the right documents, the right information, the right people, etc. So I think that's where I use it most. And you?
Yeah. Well, I have extreme amounts of team meetings, so I use the transcription and the Copilot summary quite a bit. But actually, a growing one is the Copilot. What's it called? In emails, when you can get
drafting or coaching?
Coaching, yes, that's the one.
Yes.
Because actually,
that's
that
cool.
just giving you a little bit of insights in tweaking some of your statements when you have these long emails. I've been increasingly
sometimes
fun
also rewrite with Copilot in Word. I think it's also a good one.
But I think in general Word, that's where I've seen immediate, for me, value, right? Put 5 bullets into it and ask it to gain some text for you, like what you have used maybe 1 hour on before. It takes literally 1 minute or 30 seconds, right? Then you just have to read it through, correct a little bit. So I think there I see big potential if you're writing a lot. Right?
Exactly, I think before jumping to the next slide, some of the employee initial reactions also reflects on the numbers we see. Some are extremely happy, some are lukewarm, and some are a little bit maybe negative towards it.
Yeah, and I think it links into some of the things we have said already, right? What expectations do you have to begin with, right? So if your expectation is that this is magical, as it says here, or magic wand, then you will get disappointed, right? Because it cannot do everything for you as it is right now, right? There are functionalities that would be really nice it could do, right? Schedule a meeting for me, or, these kind of features where you spend a lot of time, as personally at least today, figuring out when is people available, how can I schedule a meeting. If you can get that automated, then of course you get
that. So
I think it's really linked to expectations, a lot of it, because of course there is. I think the product it's working well for what it is, right? But I think many people think that AI will do the work for you, and therefore they get a little bit disappointed.
I agree. Yeah. Any questions? That we have to
there's
take?
a lot of questions actually, but maybe if we take the next slide and gather some of the questions.
Good idea. Let's wrap up with the preliminary results and the gains so far. We have this very nice dashboard. Let's start from the left.
Let me just, I don't want to go into all the numbers. People can read it, right? But what it shows here, and please take the numbers with some grain of salt, because it's not actual science what we are doing here. So it might be showing a more positive or negative picture than than what the actual picture is, but I don't think that is necessarily so important. The important thing here is that we have built this dashboard, right? And this is what we're going to use to over time figure out, are we moving in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
So are we getting more people, of course, onboarded, more active users? We have some, you can say, goals in Novo Nordisk about how many that we at least want people to use minimum 2 apps. That's why we have the one in the bottom corner, right? We want 80% to use minimum 2 apps within some period of time.
Yeah.
Right now we're at 63. We want that to grow, right? And we can only do that with adoption and with coming with new features that people can actually use and gain value from. Overall, I think the picture looks pretty good. Also looking at that the product is still in development. It is a new product. It is something that requires a habit change of the way that you work today. So overall, it looks quite positive, I would say.
I think if you look at this from a solutions point of view, and if you look at similar rollouts where you actually have new ways of working introduced through solutions, this paints a pretty positive picture. If you look at when we rolled out Teams for all the organizations, there was a lot of confusion and sort of pushback on why we should use this. This is more, people get the idea of why they should use AI. They need to learn it now, and that's where we are. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left.
Boris? One of the maybe easier questions is, who owns the Copilot? Is it IT or is it elsewhere in the organization?
We sort of literally we own Microsoft Copilot, and we are part of IT, and we are digital workplace, etc. So we own, you can say, the responsibility of making this an adopted product across Novo Nordisk. But it's pretty obvious that we cannot do that ourselves. That's why, you know, the users, our champions across the company, the ones in the business who are actually the ones using it, we cannot do that without them at all, right? So we cannot drive that by ourselves. But of course, we have the responsibility to drive it, and we are doing that in IT, Novo Nordisk, but it's in a collaboration with many other people.
One of the other questions I think is interesting is, are you planning to build your own Copilots or to extend Copilot in any way? I think that's the question we often get.
I mean, yes, we are, of course. Now, we are responsible for some of the Microsoft products, so that's what we are looking into. But then you have the Microsoft Copilot Studio coming in now that we are trying to look into. How can you integrate data from other sources with Microsoft 365 Copilot, or how can you build other, you can say, Copilots yourself? So that is something we're looking into, but that's even more immature from a Microsoft perspective than Microsoft 365 Copilot. So I think we start with this, but for sure we are going to see more and more different AI solutions where some of it is going to be related to 365 Copilot.
Another question unrelated to that is, are you training your users in prompting?
Yes and no. You can say we don't have specific prompt courses as of now, but of course we have a lot of guidance on how to prompt, etc. But it's not like we have made like a specific live training course for prompting. Some has actually, because we also have, you can say, ChatGPT. We have a Novo Nordisk ChatGPT within the company, and so that's also used by a lot of people. And there exists some prompting courses, but personally, we are not driving prompting courses ourselves. But I think for sure that that's a need, and there will be more and more of that, because that is the skill that you have to learn, right?
And maybe opening the lid a little bit on our reinforcement phase here is that is one of our focus areas. Now that we have so many users up and running, next natural step is about learning them to prompt, but we're also inviting the community to do that themselves, so guiding them, but getting also these good tips and tricks from the users themselves.
Exactly.
Another question related to that is, what communication channels are you using to support your users?
Yeah, but that is SharePoint, right? So we use SharePoint, so people can go in. Then we use Viva Engage a lot. And then, of course, emails, because Novo Nordisk is a very email-based company, right? So everyone uses email quite a lot. So that is the way to get in contact with users. And then, of course, we use, as you say, champions word of mouth as well. That's also why it's a viral campaign, right? That we want people to talk about this and, you know, talk to your colleague about it, right? Do your colleague need a license? We still have licenses left, etc., right? So that's also a way of doing it.
Another question is, did you carefully measure the time savings in some areas, or is it mainly back of the envelope gut feelings?
No, it is based on subjective questions, you can say, to the users about how much time do they actually save about it. We don't have measurements behind the scenes that can actually calculate that, because we are not monitoring, you can say, in that sense, employees' behaviors directly, right? So we cannot get that data as of now, besides subjective opinions.
All right.
I don't think we have time for more questions during this this broadcast, but thank you for participating. It's been a pleasure being here. It's been a pleasure hearing about Novo Nordisk and your learning so far, and looking forward to seeing much more learnings that way.
Thank you so much, Janus, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and also in the project, we've been working very closely together on getting this up and running over the last 3 months. So it's been a very fun journey so far, and thanks for letting us pick your brain today.
No worries. And sharing, share your learnings. It's really.
Thanks for letting me.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
If you have obviously 45 minutes. Is going by fastly. So if you have any more questions to us in terms of how we rolled this out, you can reach out to Boris and myself. We'll be happy to talk to you further on Copilot in general. Thank you, and have a lovely day.